This week, we share our test results of the 2021 Nissan Rogue, how the Ford F-150 Lightning might be the vehicle to bring EV trucks to the masses, and we share our all-time favorite cars that we've ever owned. Next on Talking Cars. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Jennifer Stockberger.
And I'm Jake Fisher.
Well, it's great to be back with all you folks, and it's great to be back with you, Jake and Jen. Good to see you folks. What have you guys been up to lately? Jake, have you been getting in any triathlon training with all this warm weather we've been having?
I absolutely have. Yeah. I'm kind of excited about the weather. I'm excited to be vaccinated. I'm excited that it seems like the summer is going to return, and I'm signed up for every triathlon I could get into.
So maybe returning back to normal is what it sounds like.
It seems that I'm not trying to get my hopes up too much, but it seems like we're getting there.
That's awesome, man. And Jen, how are things on the Stockberger homestead? How's Chance the horsey and Darcy the dog?
They're all good. They keep me busy, but you know what I'm liking? Gardens. I do like gardening, so I've been out doing a lot of gardening.
I've heard that about you. I heard you and my girlfriend Tanya both went to get some plants one of those weekend days. So anyway, but we are here to talk about cars. And actually, we're going to talk about pickups first. We're going to talk about the Ford F-150 Lightning electric pickup. They've released a lot of information on this truck. Right now, we think it's going to be a 2022 model. And, the quick kind of specs on it is that it's going to be offered in 4 versions with 2 different battery options between 426 to 563 horsepower. And between kind of the important thing with, an EV is what's the driving range. And so the base battery will be a 230 mile driving range, and the extended range will be 300 miles. They're saying on sale date is the spring of 2022, but Ford, of course, is not the only one who's readying, these electric pickups. We've got the GMC Hummer EV pickup is due out this fall. The Rivian R1T Launch Edition, they're saying deliveries could start as early as next month. Other versions coming out in January of 2022. And of course, there's Tesla's absolutely gorgeous Cybertruck. That's a joke. That is slated for volume production to begin in 2022. And of course, there's other companies that are also working on electric pickups. But so the first question I'm going to throw to you, Jake, are we seeing an entire segment shift, that pickups are going to go electric?
Well, I wouldn't say shift. I think we're going to have gasoline powered pickup trucks for a while. But this is really a big freaking deal. And the reason I say that is because look, electric vehicles have been around for a long time. I mean, there was electric vehicles even before there was gasoline vehicles, right? But what happened in, say, the last decade is they started figuring out where electric vehicles could make sense. And, there was all these compliance cars, right? These cars that, did 70 miles on a charge and no one really bought it, or they bought it because they had to buy it or whatever. But it's really taking hold in the luxury car market, the high-end luxury market. So, I mean, it's really kind of a big deal there. Sports cars makes a lot of sense. I mean, you think about Lamborghinis and Ferraris and all these things, and Tesla's well, we got this big 4-door that accelerates faster. So that makes sense. But you're not going to have that much impact until you start really getting off these vehicles that use a lot of fuel. And, last time I checked, the number 1, number 2, number 3 selling vehicles in the United States are big full-size pickup trucks that are getting under 20 miles per gallon. So the fact that we're going to have options now, electric options in that segment, is really, really interesting. Can one do a huge amount in terms of how much gasoline we use and how much, carbon dioxide that goes out and all those things, but also in terms of the usage patterns, because to some people, they may have a pickup truck, but it's not even their daily driver. So, the time, I mean, I know I love having a pickup truck to, throw the mountain bikes in or move something around or tow. But, to have that electric pickup truck to get those things done, that could be a real game changer. And I think it could honestly, it may get more people getting pickup trucks, but it may convert some too and make a big difference.
Yeah. Jen, I know your husband, Jack, has an F-150 that he bought just not that long ago, and it's got the 2.7 liter twin turbo EcoBoost V6. And I know he loves that thing. And I also know, kind of like me, Jack's a big, burly, bona fide truck guy. And so did you bring this up to him? Like, Jack, would you ever get an electric pickup? I know he does a lot of driving to your cabin in Vermont and back. Is that something he would ever consider? Or does he like that old school kind of, manly pickup kind of burly thing?
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually put this question to him when they announced it the other day, because he's outdoorsy. He's a hunter. He does a lot of handy things, wood and, mowers. He's forever switching things between here and Vermont. And I said, would you ever consider? And quite frankly, I was a little surprised because I thought he would be that, oh no, it's got to be a gas powered truck, And he was like, a truck's a truck. Huh. If it had and his first question was, what's the range? Can I get back and forth to Vermont, back and forth to Lake Champlain? Can I do that? He goes, that's perfect. I can just get up and almost back. That was fine. And then his other concern was battery and reliability. Will I ever have to change it? What happens? So I think there's some proven battery technology that I said you probably don't have to worry. But more so, when I started to tell him some of the things it could possibly do, like run some tools or be emergency power for a house, he was especially, I think they've alluded to maybe some solar charging. He, take somebody like him who's out hunting and you can have a solar powered battery that maybe runs something while you're out in the woods doing whatever it is you do out there, And I also think it's going to take, for people like Jack, that outdoorsy, big, burly truck person, some like-minded people to get this truck and then sing its virtues. Do you know I could do X, Y, and Z with this truck that I could never do with my gas-powered version? Maybe it's a celebrity endorsement. If Luke Bryan goes out and buys one and shows everybody how great it is,
Jake,
maybe
he's a country singer.
Things.
Luke Bryan's a country singer.
Let me write that down. He's not on the alt stations that I listen to. So I think, Jen, I think you got it exactly. And here's the thing is, like, I feel like the naysayers are like, oh, people it won't be a real truck. Those aren't truck people. I think a lot of truck people are using it for, and I'll tell you case in point, when Ford came out and they said, hey, we're not going to put the big V8 in the F-150. And actually, when they first offered that Turbo 6, which they said has got all the power and performance of the V8, there were naysayers that weren't truck people. So they're like, oh, you're kidding. No one's going to get the V6 F-150. They want the big V8. And the big V8 sounded great. I mean, I'm not going to lie. But you look at what happened today, and yeah, the 2.7 V6, people are buying it in droves because it has the power, it has that smoothness. So I wouldn't sell truck people short.
No. And they've attached a name that has great, lightning. What's next? The EV Raptor, it's coming. So, they've attached those names.
You know what I feel is, sounds like Jack might be the spokesmodel for this F-150 Lightning when it comes out. So anyway,
very handsome. He's very handsome.
He is. Anyway, we have a full preview story up on our website, consumerreports.org. You can read a whole lot more about this F-150 Lightning. There's a whole lot of more aspects to the vehicle, including the front trunk or frunk, that because you don't have a gas engine up there, Ford is saying you can throw 2 golf bags up there. So there's a whole lot of other interesting features that we don't have time to go into, but read up on that. And it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of, I guess we're going to be, not only are we going to be driving a lot of electric vehicles, but we're going to be driving a lot of electric trucks, it sounds like, in the next couple years. So stay tuned for that. Before we go on any further, I just want to talk a little bit about the Talking Cars donation program. And if you don't know, Consumer Reports is a nonprofit organization. So everything that we do is funded by memberships as well as donations. So any amount you can give helps us continue to do the good work that we do, including this podcast. So you can find out more information at cr.org/givetalkingcars. And with that, let's move on to my favorite segment, which is This Week at the Test Track. We've actually gotten several questions about the 2021 Nissan Rogue. People have said, what's up with the new Rogue? When are you guys going to have full test results? And the good news is we've finally do have our full test results. There's a little bit of a backstory that I have a feeling Jake is going to tell us about as to why it took us a little longer than normal. But just so the quick CV on this vehicle, this is Nissan's compact SUV. First redesign since 2014. It's powered by a 181 horsepower, 2.5 liter 4-cylinder, mated to a continuously variable transmission, available in front or all-wheel drive. Lots of standard active safety features: forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic warning, and lane departure warning, all standard. We bought a second tier SV trim for our test program with all-wheel drive. We also got the SV Premium package that brings leatherette seats, heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, panoramic sunroof, and more. Total price of our test vehicle, $33,230. So with all that, Jake, just tell us a little bit about why did it take longer than usual to get this Rogue through our test program?
Well, we're just not on the ball. We're kind of lazy. We're taking our time. No, honestly, everyone has to be patient with us in general because, we're dealing with COVID, and also it's sometimes actually hard to get vehicles now with chip shortages and all these things. But this was kind of a little bit of a unique case. So when we were testing the Rogue, we do a full battery of tests. We put it through more than 50 different tests. We have an avoidance maneuver test, which it's a double lane change. You take hard left and hard right, and probably seen this test. Well, during that test, when we were driving the Rogue with, we actually had occasionally both inside wheels would lift, short amount, but briefly. We didn't really see it as like a big safety concern. It wasn't like threatening to roll over or anything like that. But we thought we would bring it to Nissan and say, hey, have you seen this? Is it designed to do that? Because it's somewhat unique. We haven't seen a lot of other vehicles do that in the handling. And because we brought it to Nissan and we explained what happened, they said, no, it shouldn't do that, and let us go back to the drawing board. And they actually were able to replicate what we were seeing on their own test track and said, well, we think we could make it better. So they actually reprogrammed the software for the stability control system and did a couple things. One, that new software is now available to anyone who bought one of the early cars. So you go to the dealership and for free, they will update your car. And all the new ones on the lot have been updated too. And we retested it with that software. And it no longer lifts the two inside wheels. So it definitely is an improvement. It wasn't really a big safety concern before, but anytime I think where they can make the car a little bit better, it's better for everyone. So, we put it through the paces, we tested it, and now we have the results.
Right. And it was that back and forth with Nissan that just kind of extended it, because we felt like we had to tell them what happened. And then they had, as you said, do all their own tests. So that whole process of them and then them coming up with the fixes, what then just, we couldn't come forwards with our results till we had, gotten the fix from them into our vehicle and then retested it. So it was just kind of a long process. And when you're dealing with a big corporation, things take a little long on their side too. But
and I think it's even more than the big corporation. They were like, okay, we got to get people to the track. Oh, but we got COVID too, and we can't do that right away. And we got to find this vehicle, and then we got to clean it out. So just everything is not as quick as normal. But again, the car is fully tested, and
and it did well, and it's a recommended vehicle. And as you said, Jake, those of you that did buy an early Rogue, definitely contact your Nissan dealer and get that fix taken care of. So let's get into what it's like to really drive this thing. John, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about it overall? And let's start more with just the driving, the engine, transmission, ride and handling. What did you think of that as far as an improvement over the previous Rogue, and also how it compares to other, small SUVs?
Yeah, so I had the impressions very much of what we wrote about it is Nissan certainly made a step up on this car, very similar to what we saw with the Sentra. Just a little bit of improvement in handling, a little bit more power. It feels a little bit more skewed to the sporty side. Even you mentioned the CVT, Mike. It does a really good job of simulating shifts that aren't really there,
Right.
So it just feels really good to drive. And what I was saying about this car, it's a very important car for Nissan, I actually looked up some of the sales figures. It outsold the next two, Murano and Kicks, by about 4 times in 2020. So this is huge. I have a neighbor who has 1 Armada and 3 Rogues in his driveway. I have older children. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Nissan family. But it's
the quantity discount or something?
Yes.
Is it like buy 2, get 1 free?
Yes. No, he's an attorney. I don't even know. Nothing. Wow. But they all have Rogues because it's one of those vehicles that may not be super surprise and delight, but it certainly doesn't offend either. And I think this iteration is the same way. I put it in the category like the Forester. It's just good. Controls very much more simplified than some of the craziness we've seen. So it's a vehicle that I think will do very well. They're certainly going to keep their Rogue buyer a little bit more sporty, which was a good thing, but not offend anyone in any way. I think it will continue to be a fabulous seller for Nissan.
Yeah, I agree with just about everything you said there. It's definitely a step up. Like the interior refinement is definitely better. The fit and finish, the soft, the padded areas, and just kind of a nice look inside. I found that I think it's, and we find this with some other, not I want to say underpowered vehicles, but vehicles that don't have a lot of power. It has kind of a jumpy, abrupt throttle off the line, which I think will take owners a little bit to get used to if you don't want to be, jolting your passengers. But as you said, Jen, really love the way they tune the CVT in terms of mimicking, a traditional automatic in that it does the shifts. The fuel economy is okay for an all-wheel drive SUV, but, compared to like the Subaru Forester and the Honda CR-V, it's about 3 miles per gallon below those. So it could definitely do a little better there. Let's talk about how did it fit you, Jen or Jake? As far as for me, I found that it the driving position was pretty good. It has a pretty low dash. I can see out over the hood pretty well. I thought the seats were good, not amazing. But I did find a lot of, this is something I go on about, the center console intrusion, and it's hard plastic, and it really hems in the driver's right knee. Did you guys have any of those issues like that, or?
I never faced that console intrusion, just I think because of where I sit very forward and just being maybe a little narrower than you guys. But I think you're right. This vehicle is one of those vehicles that it doesn't matter what age you are, it's going to work. It's a good teen driver car. It's a good small family car. It's a great car for my 80-year-old parents. I put it in that same category with the Forester. It just works for so many people.
The category works for, this is why small SUVs is what everyone's buying. I think it's right. I feel like Nissan's back. I think Nissan kind of had a hiatus of rental car fleets for a little bit, but I think they're back. The Sentra is certainly very competitive and this is no slouch at all. The issue is that this segment, all those things are true about this segment. And while it's a very competitive vehicle, the competition in the small SUV market is just crazy. When you look at Honda CR-V, Subaru Forester, Toyota RAV4, the Mazda CX-5, these are incredibly competitive vehicles, bar none. Right. I don't care if it's a luxury brand. I don't care what segment it is. These are great choices for people. So it is a crowded market. So it's great that there's another good choice in that crowded market.
Yeah, the way I kind of summed it up was, I don't think this new Rogue really does anything great, but it's great at not doing anything wrong. And that's kind of where, because that's what happens. Some SUVs, maybe they've got really bad low-speed drivability, that's got some transmission hiccups, or it's got way too stiff of a ride or something like that. And this one, really, there's nothing really bad about it. It's not exciting to drive like a Mazda CX-5, or something like that, but it does just about everything pretty well. So we have our full road test results up on consumerreports.org. So for lots more information, please go check that out. Let's move on to something else that our producer Dave threw this out to us today. Well, why don't you guys, Monty, why don't you pose this to Jen and Jake? And he wanted me to ask.
Is that how he says it?
Yeah, he has a very strange voice. And he said, let's talk about what was your favorite car that you ever owned. And let's start, Jake, with you. What's the favorite car you ever owned? And also let us know if you wished you still had it.
Oh, yeah. So 1987 Toyota MR2. I bought the car in college. I drove it to, my first jobs in upstate New York and Detroit, through the snow with snow tires. I mean, it just was an incredible car. And, not just was it, no power steering, but it's like, feel like you could like adjust the steering knuckles yourself because it's mid-engines, It's super lightweight. It actually rode pretty well, because it was ridiculously really reliable. It was like, back when Toyota made really, really fun cars and they did it themselves rather than outsourcing it to another company. What I did was I wish I had it that way again, because when I started working at Consumer Reports, I didn't need my own car. So I turned it into a race car. So I wrecked this car and not like crashing it. I ruined this car because I lowered it and gave it a really stiff suspension. I gutted the interior and I made it really fast, but it wasn't as fun anymore. It was just kind of like hard edged and numbers and went around Lime Rock Park really fast. But I wish it was back the way it was, when it was stock.
Jen, what about you? What do you got for us? What was the favorite car that you ever owned?
So it's funny when you asked us this question, I think that cars, kind of like music, have the ability to transport you back to the time you were in. So it's not just about the car, it's about where you were at when you owned them.
Are we going to get all deep here for a moment, or what's going on?
We might. So It's funny, the first one I said was, that whole idea was, I can remember going to the prom in Tommy Bishop's 72 Duster. And just whenever I see a Duster, I'm like, oh, I had to move the brake rotors from the floor so they wouldn't get all over my gown. So funny things like that. But my favorite, very similar timing, Jake. In 1989, I bought my first car that I actually owned. And it was a 89 Subaru GL Coupe, not a Justy. I didn't buy a Justy. And it was kind of a cool car. Yeah, big power, 1.8 liter, I think.
Manual transmission?
Yes. I was working at Pirelli Tire. I had my own money, and it was my first car, and I loved that car. I drove it till tons of miles on it. I actually taught my stepdaughter to drive a manual in it and sold it to her later for $200. And then bought a car as I was expecting a family that was more suitable because it was a coupe. It wasn't really great for child seats and stuff. But do I wish I still had it? Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite.
Very cool. Well, we're all kind of in the same range because my favorite car that I ever owned was a 1985 Toyota Supra. It was actually a 1985 and a half Toyota Supra is what they called it. And I bought it used, so it was not new when I bought it. And I bought it because I fell in love with that car when my Uncle Joe, who this is the cool uncle, he had the Chevelle and then he had the Corvette and then he bought the Supra in 82. And that was the very first car I ever drove. When I was 14, he let me drive it in a parking lot. And so then, fast forward many years, I bought my own 85 Supra. I mean, it was just, for those of you that don't know, this was the second generation Supra, had an inline six, super smooth. If you know anything about inline sixes and BMW inline sixes, they're just such smooth engines. Love to rev, sounded good, 5-speed manual, wide tires for the time, well-bolstered sports seats, and pop-up headlamps. I mean, it was just this, and this was the car that Dan Gurney, a famous race car driver, Dan Gurney said, this has the right stuff. And I, it had a stereo with a 3-thing graphic equalizer, which I just thought everything about this car I thought was so cool. And I loved that car so much, and I wish I still had it now. And if I ever came across one that was in really good shape, I'd probably buy one now. Anyway, so you know what? Why not tell us what your favorite cars that you've ever owned were? You can send those to talkingcars@icloud.com. That's where we like you to send all your questions, comments, 30-second video clips. We read every single question or comment you send in. Well, I don't read them. My assistant, Dave, reads all of them. And then I've asked him to forward along any ones that really have a glowing, reviews of me. So I'm still hoping that's going to happen one of these days. But, we hold out hope. Anyway.
Your fan club. When your fan club starts.
Yeah, it could happen. Anyway, let's start with John from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. John says, I follow the reliability ratings for the cars I own from year to year in your annual auto issue. Recently, I noticed the reliability rating for my 2013 Nissan Murano has been downgraded from much better than average to just average, with major transmission issues causing the most impact as well as other areas. Should I be concerned about this? I have only routine maintenance on my car so far, but should I consider trading in this vehicle or selling it outright to avoid impending significant repairs down the road? Jake, you're our reliability expert. What should John do?
It's a tough decision in this market. And normally I would be saying, yeah, you know what, that car's getting a little bit old and that, CVT is under a lot of stress, with a pretty big vehicle and power and all that. But right now we're in a market where used cars are just ridiculously priced. New cars are sometimes hard to get too. So you might want to consider. So if you think about it, you've got a nearly 10-year-old vehicle. The worst case is your CVT is gone and needs to be replaced. What I would do is call around, see what it would cost you to actually replace it. Not with a new CVT. You're not going to do that for an old car, but you're going to get a used, either remanufactured or one out of out of a salvage yard. See what that's going to cost you and think about that. Right now we're in this weird spot where maybe putting $1,000 into that old car might make sense because of the way the market is.
Yeah, it is a weird time right now. So it's kind of like throwing everything out of whack, hopefully just temporarily. All right, so let's move on to Denny. Denny says, from viewing your podcast, it seems headlight design and the safety it lends to driving day or night is important, but I'm concerned about the degradation of the lenses as they age. Does the yellowing and fogginess affect the function of the headlight? I have seen advertised various aftermarket remedies that promise to restore the clarity of the lens. What would be your recommendation to properly maintain headlights? And wouldn't you know it, we have Mrs. Stockberger with us, who is the queen of all headlight testing at Consumer Reports. So what can you tell Denny here?
So Denny, the short answer is yes. That yellowing, that fogginess will limit the light's ability to get out to the road. So it actually hurts your visibility. There's a polycarbonate coating that went on, or that goes on a lot of headlight lenses, and that's what's deteriorating, particularly in areas where cars get a lot of sun, ozone exposure. So that happens, in this era of car. The restoration kits, they absolutely work. We have some pictures here to share. Our receptionist, Donna, and her sons picked up a 2000 Civic a number of years ago. They got a great deal, but look at the pictures. These lenses were very foggy, very deteriorated. We got a restoration kit, and there's some before and after, as well as some side-by-side. You can see the dramatic difference in how those kits restored that lens. You can even have a body shop do it, just with some compound and some buffing. Just get that polycarbonate restored. The question is how long that will last. When does the fogginess and the yellowness come back? It might be that you have to continue to do this. So depending on how long you're going to keep the car, measure the cost of, a number of restoration kits versus just replacing that headlight housing. And the newer the car, the more expensive that can get. But you might want to weigh that out. But they absolutely work. You should try not to leave them, especially if they're really deteriorated. And you'll probably be like, after you restore them, because you'll see much better at night.
Yeah, those photos you sent along of Donna's car is it's ridiculous how much better it is.
It is.
So yeah, a little bit of elbow grease and you're on your way, So
and totally DIY. I did it in the garage. It's very simple. It's a number of steps, but totally doable for anybody.
Yeah, as we say at Consumer Reports, if Jen can do it, anybody can do it.
Is that what they say?
No one said
behind your back.
I think we said that about you, Mike.
Yeah, no, actually, they say a lot of things about me, right to my face, which is even worse. I'd rather you say it behind my back.
Right.
Let's move on to another question. This comes from Abby from Philadelphia. Abby says, my twins will be learning to drive soon. We own a 2004 Lexus LS 430, which I'd like to give them to learn on. It's in excellent condition, feels like a bank vault when you close the doors, and comes with electronic stability control. Would this be a good car for my kids, or do they need something newer as far as modern safety is concerned? Our car also has 300 horsepower. Is that too much for them to handle? Now, this is a really interesting question. I love this question on many levels, but Jake and Jen, you guys both have teenage sons that have recently got their driver's license, and you've had to deal with this situation of, what car do you give them? Do you buy them? That kind of thing. So Jake, let's start with you. What did you do, and what's your advice for Abby?
We went through a very similar process, and my wife was driving a 2006 Prius, which she upgraded to a 2019 Prius, and well, I mean, the Prius doesn't have 300 horsepower, but this is what my son's driving right now. And so car has I think it's about 150,000 miles on it. It still drives like new. We've known where it's been its entire life, and it's been taken care of. And it works. And the truth is yeah. I mean, look, it's an older car for a teen. So obviously safety has improved. So if you could get a newer car, that's great. But if you choose the right older car, so our 2006 Prius, it does have stability control. Wasn't very popular in 2006. Same thing with this 2004 LS. It was, so among that kind of vintage vehicle, this is a pretty safe vehicle. You look at the LS, it's got very decent, crash protection and stability control. So I think you're okay. I mean, in terms of 300 horsepower, I mean, look, that old Civic or that Prius, you could go over 100 miles an hour. So, I mean, I think that's a lot about kind of talking to your teen, the level of trust. And the truth is that these days, 300 horsepower, I mean, a Camry V6 has got over 300 horsepower. So it's not uncommon to see how that kind of that power.
Yeah, my 85 Supra only had like 160 horsepower, and I thought that was pretty decent at the time.
I had 112 in my MR2, and I could get into trouble with that. So
yeah, Jen. So I know Griffin, your son Griffin, again has been driving for half a year or so now. What did you guys do as far as a vehicle for him?
Yeah, and again, we handed down the vehicle that we had, and it's the perennial balance. How do you balance crash protection and crash protection? Which is why we do the list with the IHS. But he went into that Frontier stability control. I don't know if I shared.
Did you say crash protection and crash protection?
Did I say crash avoidance and crash protection?
Oh, because balancing crash protection and protection is really easy because they equal, right? I mean,
they equal. Sorry. Yeah, unequal crash avoidance and crash protection.
Yes.
That. So I don't know if I shared that the Frontier got totaled. Totally not his fault. He was stopped. He got hit from behind and then pushed into a vehicle in front of him. Hit hard enough that the person who hit him, their airbags deployed. So it bent the frame. So he is now in an 09 Pilot that we found, stability control again,
Honda
and that's
Pilot.
key,
Yeah.
Right? Honda Pilot, that's key, Abby. So it's funny, Jake, you say that we tested an LS in 2003. We had 290 horsepower, and the balance there that we do with the IHS is horsepower to weight ratio. So you can have a very powerful car, but you don't want it super lightweight. Again, the balance of protection and protection. I mean, avoidance and protection. But if you do that car weighed 4,204 pounds. It's well below our threshold for horsepower to weight. As Abby says, it's like a bank vault inside. It was a big enough car to provide protection, even though it was somewhat powerful. And to your point, it went 0 to 60 in 7.1 seconds with that 290 horsepower. The Kia Sorento has 281 horsepower and is 6 seconds 0 to 60. So you bring it into today's, you wouldn't buy the new LS, but that car, pretty safe. The only piece that would be missing for our lists, our formal lists, is that IHS often doesn't test the really high-end luxury vehicles, lower volume, so you don't see the top safety pick plus. It's fine for its time, but take our criteria and kind of rattle them off for an older car, because our lists are meant to be a real, these are the best of the best, but what were the braking distances? What's it got for crash protection scores? What is this horsepower to weight ratio? Is it super fast and light, or does it have enough to surround them? So, Abby, I think it's a fine car for you to teach your twins on.
So a 300 horsepower LS 430, okay. A Mazda Miata with a 300 horsepower aftermarket turbo kit, maybe not okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That
way
makes
more
sense.
fun.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks, Jake and Jen, for joining us and doing such a great job. If you want to learn more about the vehicles and the topics we talked about today, you can click on the links in the show notes. Don't forget to send those questions, comments, 30-second video clips to talkingcars@icloud.com. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you all next week.